All right, we will call the meeting to order. Skokie Public Library Board, Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 at 6:36 p.m. Welcome, everybody. Susie, any comments from observers?
No.
All right, then we'll move on to minutes from the regular meeting of February 12th, 2025. Any comments, changes, edits? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Page 3, Director's Report. Richard?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. The biggest news, I guess, from this past month is obviously the water main break in Skokie. I know all of you were affected as well, and a big, obviously, challenge for the community. The library was no different. We were closed for 2 days, as you all know, from February 14th to 15th. Just want to commend my staff for stepping up in so many ways to just handle that situation, get the building back in order in good time, and open up for the public on Sunday, February 16th, which is as soon as we had water in the building, we were able to start planning for opening, and we were able to do that. And since then, thankfully, we've had no issues stemming from that emergency closure. The worst thing is that our CERC numbers will be affected a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And everyone on the staff who live in Skokie, I think we're okay as well. So I'm just thankful for that. But so that's big news. The library hosted the recent candidate forums for some of the Village of Skokie positions, and though they were all a success, Nancy Kim Phillips, our Director of Community Engagement, isn't here tonight, but I just want to thank her publicly for all the coordination she handled with the volunteer on the League of Women Voters of Evanston side of things, and also Amy Kuster and Amy Holcomb, both were there each of the 3 nights, and really ensured that everything went smoothly. And I was there one night, and I heard a lot of positive feedback that the library is hosting this kind of event to educate, to help provide information for community members. So I thought that was a success. I also want to just mention the retirement of our former youth services manager, now Shelly Sutherland. She retired from as our youth services manager after 10 years of service, and just did a number of great things while she was here. And just want to wish her the best. And so we're in the process of finding her successor. So hopefully in the next month or so you'll hear about that. The art update. So there's an attachment to my director's report that you probably saw. The 3 pieces that were acquired in January and approved by the board are off to the framers, and we'll soon hopefully have them back, and we're preparing them for kind of unveiling to the public and introducing to the public all together sometime in the beginning of the summer. So that's our goal. But we're continuing to look for other pieces, as I mentioned in January. And one of the artists that we were really interested in was Melissa Leandro. She's a Chicago-based artist. The art committee had an opportunity to go to her studio, as well as get a nearby gallery near her studio where she was showing her work in an exhibit. And it's actually currently there. And we were really impressed with her work. Shabnam was able to join us for that art visit as well, which was really nice. And there was consensus on wanting to move forward with one particular piece called Let Me Stay Here. And you'll see the image on page 6. Susie prepared this kind of artist profile and image there. So that's the piece that we would like to move forward with. It's a fairly large piece, and initially the art consultant recommended perhaps the Petty Auditorium would be a good location, kind of on the side, flanking the stage there. But some of us also are intrigued by the idea of having it in on the east lobby wall where actually the board photos are right now. We won't remove them and lose them, we'll remove them and replace them and find a good home for them in a prominent location. But that's such a large wall that's kind of calling for a big piece. So that's a possibility. It's not 100% decided or anything. I wanted to actually ask the board if board members had more thoughts about that, or Shabna, if you want to say anything about your own thoughts since you saw it in person, please do. But yeah, we'd like to move forward on that piece. Another possibility is to there's a companion piece called See Me that's similar to that piece, and the one thought is to possibly purchase both of them and kind of fill that entire wall with her work. Susie has actually a mock-up of what that might look like, and maybe she can pull that up, but while I'm talking. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's gorgeous.
yeah, they're companion pieces. They're different sizes, but would I think really fill that space nicely. And but there are varying opinions on that, and for sure we would like to move forward on Let Me Stay Here, which is the one on the left, right? Yeah. And do you have the one where it's just alone, Susie, or no? Okay. Well, just imagine the one on the left centered.
I have a picture from when you sent it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I sent it to. But just as a reminder, also the board approved this expenditure of a certain amount of money in January for additional pieces. So really, board approval isn't needed, and also it's under like spending threshold. But as I mentioned in January, every time we acquire a piece of art, I will bring it to the board and just keep the board informed, and obviously invite your thoughts on the work. If everyone dislikes it, it probably wouldn't go forward, but yeah. So the rest is just kind of self-explanatory. There's a volunteer and community partner luncheon in April, early next month, and I hope to see all of you there. It's always a really lovely event. Two of our staff members will actually perform music during the event, and so that's kind of entertainment. And Mayor Van Dusen agreed to join us and share just some brief remarks at the close of his long tenure as mayor. And then there's a Turning Point Town Hall that's happening this Friday. If anyone is interested, please let me know and I'll give you the details. It's a Zoom meeting. So, yeah. If you have any questions, or especially if you have any comments about the art in question, Shabna, I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
The picture doesn't do it justice. You have to see it in person. It was just mind-blowing. This artist and her work, and just hearing her speak about what inspires her and how she comes about, how she approaches her work. It was very moving, to look at a piece, but then to actually see the artist and to hear what makes them create that piece. It was very, very moving. And I do not, envy anyone who has to pick one. Because we were all in the gallery, and I was talking to, like so many other colleagues, and they're like, this one. It was just, you have to see it.
Yeah, and Susie's also on the art committee. Susie, if you want to add anything about your thoughts, or
I was just really blown away by the technique and the colors and the vibrancy of everything that we saw, and I was really excited about getting the one piece I would love to do that. But
yeah,
I think it would be really fitting with the space, and it's just very reflective of the mission of the art committee.
She has an interesting story, and you saw her bio there in the artist statement. So. Other things. There you go. See?
She's very
I have
personal.
a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I support either direction, whatever you guys want to do. I will say I do like the diptych. I like two. And the only reason I say that is I think when people are engaging with artwork, it's nice to have something where you can compare and contrast two pieces. So I like the idea of at the entrance. I think it would be a really great facilitator for conversation about artwork, so I think that's really great. And then I really like these bios that you put together, Susie, I think they're really nice. So is the intention then to have like a similar QR code next to the artwork where a patron could then scan it and then they could potentially be brought to a bio like this to learn more about the artist and the artwork? Or like what's the intention, I guess, to help educate patrons on the artwork that's in the library?
Yeah, we haven't figured all the details out, but that we have definitely talked about the utilizing the QR code and introducing the art that we purchased for the summer introduction, like all in collectively, you know, and having, you know, you've seen our exhibit, and we have like vinyl kind of artist statements and kind of summary of what the exhibit is, and essentially creating our little mini exhibit on art acquisition. So, but yeah, we'll definitely have like links to more information or ways to engage. And we're hoping for programming to be planned all together with that, so the artists hopefully come to the library and engage with the public with a lecture or workshops or, so, yeah.
Or even what Shabna was saying, how meaningful it was for you to hear from the artist's voice. It'd be so neat, even with the scan of the QR code, it could take you to a short video of the artist actually talking about the piece from their perspective. Like that would be really great, you know.
Right. Susie, can you share what about the letter and that you sent each artist to kind of build that relationship?
Yeah, we sent them like a really nice welcoming letter, just welcoming to the community, a little bit, sharing a little bit about the library and about Skokie in general, and we also sent them like some gift baskets that, you know, we kind of reflect a little bit of what each artist does. And yeah, that was really cool, and we did hear back from some of the artists as well about it.
Yeah, so we're already starting to build that relationship, so in anticipation of asking them to come to the library and do a program for us, you know, but no, I mean, we want them to feel like this is a relationship now with them, where it's kind of like an ongoing dialogue about their piece and their work with the community. So.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the art? I mean, there's no vote or decision that has to be taken here, and if you want to think about it too, you can feel free to email me. You know, we're always in conversation with our consultant as well. And, but that one piece is definitely on hold for us. So,
I think if you're keeping the chairs, the two pieces frame it better.
Yeah.
I like both, but I think the impact of the one is really powerful. But I like what you said too, Mary, so I mean.
I'm either way, yeah, it's great, no matter what.
Right. Yeah. If we don't do the two, we can eventually put other pieces in the future there.
It does throw me off that they're different sizes. though.
Yeah, I know,
That's
right?
my perfection. Nature,
I
but-
know what you mean.
I'd be excited to see it up close,
Yeah.
because I think that's where.
They're really great. Yeah, it was a treat to get to the gallery. And I mentioned the gallery name there, so if you have time, it's going to be up for, I think, another month or so. Okay. Well, yeah, email me if you have other thoughts. Thank you.
Other comments? I know context when I wrote about being closed for 2 days this month, I flash back to it was March 5 years ago.
Right.
We were meeting with the head of the village public health. A day later, the bottom dropped out and we closed.
Yeah.
And they said it was going to be for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Shop and I had computers with us then. Before it, and the construction had started, so.
2 months prior, yeah.
Yeah, chaos, but then,
Yeah.
but being closed for 2 days for water was nothing.
You know, unfortunately, we've kind of become really good at closing the library when needed. We never want to, but we know what to do, you know, so, like I said, the staff all stepped up and really handled it well, so.
Other thoughts or comments on the director's report? Hearing none, we'll move on then to the approval of the February 2025 disbursement report. Questions about that? I had a question about 6160 to $500 candidate reimbursements. Who's the candidate for reimbursement?
We are hiring for some supervisory or manager level positions, and we wanted to really strengthen the pool by considering candidates who might be flying in from out of state. So we're trying something new there where we're having we're helping with travel, not fully covering, but helping to some degree with travel reimbursement to get them to come visit the library for a full day interview, and just to make sure we get the right people for those critical positions.
And we clearly had nothing to do with the candidate forums.
No, oh yeah,
So
no.
that's- Given it was,
Job candidate
Job.
reimbursements, yeah, thank you for clarifying that, that's important.
it's a month, yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right, yeah.
So maybe for future, if that happens.
Yeah, so we did not,
Be a little
no,
more specific.
exactly, yeah. Internal job candidate reimbursements, not for any political elections.
Under technology and network, what was the Glowforge? I think that you said that was the engraver. Is that for like servicing the engraver or buying a new one, or what kind of
We
expense? is that?
traded in an old machine and received a new one, I believe, so
Okay,
that was just the cost, the difference, and yeah, it's one of our laser engravers, the one on the right in the studio.
okay.
Very popular machine.
There are no other questions. Can I have a motion to approve the February 2025 disbursement report?
Motion approved?
Second.
All in favor? It's money, so we have to do Mary,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shavna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Lula.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Consent agenda, pages 21 through 32. Richard, anything you want to point out?
Just that we're doing fine with our year-to-date budget. We're very close to closing out the year, 2 more months here, and let's see, Laura, do you want to or Leah, do you want to comment on any of the longevity profiles?
We're still working our way through all of the people who have served at least 10 years. So we've got a couple more months of that, and then we'll take a break, and then there'll be one more early next year for the people who are hitting 10 years in 2026. But yeah, welcome any questions about it.
And I know Leah is working on really activating that Values in Action Award that I mentioned maybe a month or 2 ago, and exciting news where we have a plan to, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Values in Action is anyone in the library can nominate their peer for embodying one, or in some cases, a lot of cases, all 4 of our values, which are collaboration, compassion, curiosity, and community. And it's been really exciting to see the burst of nominations. I sent out an email reminder. I was like, we're gonna do a drawing soon, and I got like 10 nominations all at once. I was like, oh, okay, I have a lot of work to do now. But anyone can be nominated, and then 3 times a year we're going to do drawings for things like the staff member of the month parking spot, and gift baskets and tote bags. So just kind of fun, celebrate your peer stuff.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned at least once a year, we'll provide kind of some summary of who was nominated and the description of what they were nominated for. So.
And I'd love to hear, after some time has passed, just kind of, if there's feedback from staff members about how the implementation of it, I'm just kind of thinking that, it's something that we should continue to invest in, and there's things we need to,
Or
to tweak a
enhance,
little
or-
bit,
Yeah,
right?
that we can definitely do that.
I just had 2 comments. I liked reading about the the new ongoing series for teens that's in partnership with Turning Point. So I think that's really, really cool. I was really excited to see that. And then I guess we had a question for you, Amy, with the cancellation or with like the library being closed for those couple of days. I imagine we had some events that were scheduled during those days. Like, were those just canceled? Were they being rescheduled for a later date, or what was the plan for those?
Yeah, so we look at it on a case-by-case basis. So Friday morning, we have our music and movement story time, for instance, and since that's weekly, we just canceled that particular one. But much to the delayed gratification of a number of folks in Skokie, our Taylor Swift dance party is still not yet rescheduled. It will be, but there's just an availability thing. So at that point, it was determining, is it something that we do every week, in which case you're just missing one, or are we gonna reschedule?
Okay, cool.
And just really quickly, the first initiative that you mentioned with the team staff at Turning Point, that's the one that was funded by, that is funded by the Community Foundation.
Okay.
So the Community Foundation and the Education Foundation, like they matched it, so yeah, that's grant funded.
Just seems like a really great program, and to, you know, especially with teens, you know, that can be kind of a rough time, so it's good to get that extra support in the community.
Exactly.
No other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 33, beginning the Annabelle Mortensen
Exactly.
I'm
I'm just gonna go take a break here. Let's go get a bite to eat. Well, and you all know Annabelle, I think, or Lula, do you know, have you met Annabelle? Annabelle is our Director of Access Services, in charge of all collections, basically, so big job and big staff. Go ahead, Annabelle, do you want to take a look?
Yeah, so first, we typically look at the borrowing policy every year. And this year, we're recommending a couple of additions. Really, they're more clarification than anything else, or sometimes we'll use a point to clarification. One regarding that cards remain in good standing as long as we have current contact information. Obviously, if we want to contact folks because there's an issue with their accounts, we always want to have something current, phone or email, before we have to get to the stage where it gets to collections, then we go to mailing. So that's just something to clarify that. And then clarification for borrowing limits that they apply in the policy to physical materials only, that our digital materials might have different loan rules because they're kind of a different animal altogether, both in regard to cost and also in regard to the contracts that we have with outside vendors for digital materials.
So we recommend that the board approve the revised.
Questions? Comments?
I do have a question. In regard to the businesses, is it one library card for the business, or employees of that business may get library cards?
It's the latter. So businesses need to essentially apply to the library as we are a business in Skokie, and we would like to give the following employees basically access to library cards. And from that perspective, it can be one person, in some cases it's 20 people. So it all depends on the business itself, and then the business is held responsible, if need be, for their employees. Any sort of fees we might have, or issues in terms of replacements, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Other questions? Now, can I have a motion to approve the revised borrowing policy as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Page 37, approval of the renewal of the InReach software. Val?
Yeah, so InReach, those of you that use the library catalog quite a bit know it as Lincoln. InReach is a software that powers Lincoln. So basically it hooks into our borrowing system, which are for all our cards and materials. It connects it automatically with other libraries nearby that have the same system. So that allows for unmediated interlibrary loan. It's very, very popular with patrons. We've had it now, I think about 10 years.
Maybe longer,
ish.
Longer.
And it also expands our catalog to other libraries. It expands what's available to our patrons directly to other from other libraries. And what's nice about it is if something is completely checked out here, but it's available in another Lincoln library, you can still request it for an interlibrary loan. So it doesn't block you if we own it. It will allow you to get it from someplace else and vice versa. So with that comes a cost, like with everything. But because right now we don't foresee moving away from Lincoln, the other Lincoln libraries were quite the team. So we are looking at locking in a 3-year agreement that keeps the cost increases at 3.5% each year.
I had a couple of questions. I know it's 3.5% year over year. Do you know what the increase is from the current contract?
3.5%.
Okay, so it is, okay. And then secondly, when I was reading through the contract, there's some verbiage in here about Canadian taxes that were applicable. What is that? It talks about Canadian GST, Canadian HST, Canadian PST. Is that
So-
applicable to us?
No, so Clarivate Company is an international company.
Okay,
They're based in London.
Okay.
They have customers throughout the world.
okay.
So this is just part of their.
It's a large, like,
verbiage.
overlay type thing. Okay,
Yes,
cool.
yes.
And this is such a small, unique piece of software, I assume there's no competitor.
So basically, the way this software works is it works with our integrated library system, Sierra. So there is nothing to compare it to, because to have something comparable, we would need to have a different ILS.
Other questions?
I think kind of more of a process question.
Sure.
I guess, how often do you go back and kind of relook at what other softwares or things that are out there? Because if we've been using it for more than 10 years, just kind of like what is the cycle of it that you would typically do to investigate and look at new products?
Sure. So the software itself, even though we've had the product for 10 years, like any software, it has upgrades all the time.
Sure.
So it's not like it's a static software. I would say probably every 3 to 5 years, we look around. We last did so 2 years ago. And we investigated other options, and no other option really met our needs in this way. We looked at actually a different software piece in the state of Illinois that we have been testing out for a few years. It doesn't meet our needs in the way this does, and we're actually looking at discontinuing that. It's been not something that's been open to patrons. We've just used it on the staff side to test it out. So again, this piece, because it's specific to the ILS, we don't look at this resource sharing piece often, because there are only a limited number of resource sharing systems out there. There's basically one large one that we use for national, state-to-state, and academic that most libraries actually in the world use. Then there's one that's offered by the same vendor, which we don't participate in. And then there's local ones. So there really isn't a lot out there, but every 3 to 5 years, we take a look around and we compare pricing as well.
Can you
just to piggyback on that question, because it probably relates to the next
Yeah.
agenda item.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about like the nature of Sierra as the ILS and how it's the backbone of like what we do here software wise?
Yeah.
And
So
also what it would take to migrate, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I joke it would take my retirement. So basically, if Sierra, if the integrated library system were to go down right now, and I'm hopefully not manifesting anything, no one would be able to check anything out, either staff or self-checks. No one would be able to log in with their card to do an event registration, to book a study room. No one would be able to go on Libby or Hoopla. No one would be able to renew an item. When items come back in, we wouldn't be able to basically check them in. It's the nervous system of everything that we do with regard to collections and patron accounts. It's basically, the card number is the manifestation of how everything connects to everything else that we authenticate for patrons. And also then the barcode number on items is how that connects to any item we have. So it's really the nervous system. So in order to migrate, it would be a year-long enterprise, and it would kind of touch all these different elements. So one of the issues beyond that is, like in much of the world, most library systems, ILS systems, are now consolidated where they're basically only owned by 4 companies. So actually the 2 primary ones for public libraries that aren't open source are both owned by Clarivate now. The ones that are open source, because they're open source, they would, typically libraries that use them have a team of developers on site that basically work with the software. So it is something that without it, we kind of all stop in our tracks. That said, it's also a continual conversation with these vendors to improve their products, to see what is out there, to talk about, well, this product that you own has this feature, when will that feature come to this other product? It's also the dance that these ILSs primarily, I shouldn't say primarily, are not just used by public libraries, but they're used by academic libraries. So they're servicing a wide range of customers. So it's a very convoluted process. It's one of the reasons why a lot of smaller libraries belong to catalog consortia, like CCS in neighboring communities. Most of the neighboring communities are in CCS because it's easier to have someone else handle this and deal with it off-site in terms of all the contract pieces than with managing it yourself. So it's kind of a domino effect of if you have a certain ILS, then there's certain products related to that ILS. If you're looking at things that aren't by the same company, so for example, our overlay, BiblioCommons, is a different company entirely. It works beautifully, but there are some things where it doesn't talk to each other quite perfectly because, there's that language piece. But it really connects everything that we do, anything that's a barcode, whether on an item or your library card number connects to ILS.
I just wanted her to explain that because to answer your question, Michelle, there are other products out there limited, but also the thought of switching is very complex. It would be a complex migration.
Yeah, we'd have to
Not
be
something,
really unhappy.
we'd have to be very motivated to do
Very
that.
unhappy, very motivated, and we have looked at some other products, but the ones, frankly, that are most interesting to us would require multiple developers on site, because they're open source.
And that comes at a cost too, so.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I've lost track if we're still at InReach or?
Yeah.
Still on InReach, sorry, yeah. I was just jumping ahead.
So
No other
InReach is the
questions?
resource sharing piece
Yeah.
of that.
We'll get to that. Can I get a motion to approve 3-year renewal of the InReach for $102,818.09 spread over the 3-year period covering May 2025 through April 2028?
Move to approve.
Second.
Individual votes, Mary,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shebna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Lula.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Now, next, approval of the renewal of maintenance agreement for Sierra ILS software, which we've already started discussing.
I had a question for Richard. Oh, sorry, I just have a question. So these, all of these renewals, we're gonna find these in the, under what budget line?
They're under technology
Technology.
now.
Under
Yeah,
technology?
we're,
Okay.
yeah, we're full, well, they were always actually under technology.
Okay.
Yeah, these were, the one next, we're moving to technology. But let's not talk about that until we get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. But to answer your question, that this is all built into the draft budget already.
Okay.
So,
Sanibel, we have your memo on page 40. Anything else you want to add to that, or we're good with the question?
It just, as with InReach, locking in for 3 years would lock in favorable rates at 3.5% increase year over year, which is actually, our last 2 contracts have been roughly 3.5, which has been very favorable. In the distant past, they would quote us 5%, 6%. So I think they're tired of negotiating with me.
But even if it went up 3.5%, as opposed to how it had been raised, maybe 5% under a different contract, are the services still the same? And the products that fall under that?
Yeah, and as I said, it's, we actually, yesterday, we upgraded to a new version of Sierra. So when we started it, I doubt that we migrated, but we're up to 6.2, and the latest release is 6.3. And actually one thing that wasn't working right, the new upgrade fixed it, so. Yes, it would be for the full complement, both the software itself, regular service, and everything that would come.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, can I have a motion to approve renewal of the maintenance agreement for Sierra ILS from Innovative Interfaces for $240,036.83 spread over the 3-year period covering May 2025 through April 2028?
So moved.
All right, individual votes, Mary,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shebna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Lula.
Yes.
That passes unanimously as well. On to the trifecta, approval, renewal of biblioteca maintenance contract, page 44.
So Biblioteca supplies our automated materials handler. So when you go in the vestibule and pop in your book and sucks it in, a little green light, that's the AMH. They also are the hardware and software vendor behind our self-check machines and some associated pieces with RFID behind the scenes as well. Also our security software. We've already purchased all the hardware and the updates. So this is for their service agreement to again, lock in 3 years for the contract. In this, actually, the price is pretty much the same as what we've paid before. The Biblioteca equipment is used more heavily, probably by us, than most of their customers. In terms of our volume, most libraries do not have the volume, both in terms of the returns and the checkouts. So having maintenance where we can call them, hey, this broke, this seems off, can you come in, can you fix this, is very crucial to us. Because we work the machines harder than other libraries do. We work.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Right. And just one note, the automated materials handler, that actually, it's not just to have that cool effect of like sucking in the book, but it actually pre-sorts the materials. So it actually saves our staff a lot of time. So there's efficiency gain there.
Questions?
Just
Now, can I have a motion?
I had one question.
Okay, sorry.
When
go ahead.
I look at the contract, I always like to go to the what is not covered section, because I always think that's really important. I'm assuming that when people are trained on the equipment, like they're kind of advised about things they shouldn't do to the machines, that way we aren't in like default with this, or like what happens, I guess, if a patron or something, like, you know, I've worked with a lot of kids, for example, and you know, you just shove something in there and like it breaks down, you know, like what happens in those situations where like the machinery is not faulty, but there is an external force, I guess, that causes the machine to break? Like how is that covered under this contract?
So basically, it is the same either way, because
Okay.
for the machine to break,
Okay,
it can happen regardless of sort of the input of it. Is called the induction. So
Okay.
there's a staff induction, there's a patron induction. They
Yes.
both work in the same way.
okay,
If something were to happen on the patron side, what the machine typically does is just stops,
okay,
and then it's out of order for a time.
okay,
And then we have to take care of it ourselves. Sometimes we can, other times we need to wait for service to come.
okay,
But there's really not a delineation. I mean, if someone were to do something outside the bounds, it would probably be more of an insurance question for us
Yeah,
than
yeah.
for a machine situation. But
okay,
regular wear and tear for those different points would essentially be the same, because usually the problem is, even if it's caused by someone, it's a mechanical problem caused by jamming
okay, that makes
typically,
sense.
or something getting caught, something that's too big or too small, or that rips in a certain way.
Okay,
So it's
Okay.
usually, it's not a problem.
okay, cool, thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the annual support and maintenance contract with Biblioteca for a total 3-year cost of $110,431.03?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mary,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shabna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Ula,
Yes.
that passes unanimously. Thank you. Passing the baton over to Laura, page 49, approval of the HVAC preventative maintenance proposal.
So speaking of systems that we really rely on, as you know, we have a very large building with a pretty complex HVAC system. So we heavily rely on our service contract they come in and do preventative checks, they do preventative maintenance. They recommend, you know, I really think if you upgraded this one little piece, it would keep it going for a little while longer. And we have gotten very long lives out of much of our equipment because we have given it such good service. We've been working with Automatic for over 6 years now, a little over 6 years. Very satisfied with their service. They are very proactive in what they recommend. They know our equipment really well and how it all works together, even the newer pieces like the chiller that we just replaced. They're good at seeing how that all ties together. So we would like to continue working with them and lock in another 3-year contract, which, as Annabelle mentioned, when you lock in for a little bit longer period of time, there are some savings. And their increases, it's only 3% year over year, which is better than some of our other vendors in other areas. So it seemed like a good route to proceed with. So I recommend the board approval of the 3-year agreement with Automatic for a total of $54,866. And I welcome any questions.
Questions, comments?
How long will we use them?
So we had 1 year as sort of a trial, like we were testing them out, and then we did a 3-year and then another 3-year. So it's been close to 7 years now.
And when we first went with them, we underwent an RFQ process, basically, for RFP process to get proposals. So we compared different numbers and services. But since Laura said we're so happy with them, we don't feel the need to go out to RFP.
Do they like send out contract like companies that come through, or is everything done by them specifically?
No, it's Automatic.
Automatic.
And we actually have one tech who's kind of assigned to us. Obviously, he has other patients as well, but he really knows our building. It works well with our staff, so
That's important.
Yeah,
For
the
continuity.
knowledge.
yes, for sure.
And he has kind of an assistant or understudy. I don't know if that's the term they use, but someone who's with him a lot, and so that person's also working the building. So if he retires or leaves or whatever, which we told him we can never do,
Right.
but yeah, we have someone in the second role. I think their names are in the contract actually.
When is the next, like, if we were approved this day, when is the next inspection due from them? You said it's done quarterly.
I believe they were just here recently.
I think you had a question.
When they do their preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Depends on what piece of equipment, I think too, I think that.
Yeah, there's some seasonality to it as well. So I believe when they were here recently, they were sort of pre-looking at some chiller things, but it's not quite time to turn it on yet, although Friday will be. But we have to wait a little bit longer. But just sort of getting things ready to go so that when they come back to turn it on for the season, things are set to go.
The only reason I was asking is, I know with like the water main break, for example, like a lot of people had issues with sediment and pipes that then kind of flush throughout systems. I was curious if we would be doing any type of additional like inspection of those parts that could be impacted by water and sediment, like the boiler or hot water pumps or something like that. We had said, I'm just speaking from personal experience, like some of our things that dealt, because we have a boiler system at my house and there were some sediment issues after that. I would hate for like sediment or something that happened from the water main break to have affected or impacted the systems and us not knowing about it until it's too late.
Yeah, I can check with Vinny for
Yeah,
details of what they inspected when they were here recently, but we haven't noticed any issues or had any problems with
that's
the
good.
equipment since then, so.
All right, cool.
Can I have a motion to approve 3-year agreement from Automatic Mechanical Services to provide preventative maintenance for our HVA systems at a total cost of $54,866?
So moved.
Mary?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Shabna?
Yes.
Ella?
Yes.
Ula?
Yes.
That passes unanimously as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all. A quick $500,000. All right, next is page 61.
I guess.
Over 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, very necessary.
Right.
Yes.
Next doesn't require a vote, but Richard, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, I'm not asking for any money on this part. It's just a second look at the projected 26 budget. I bullet pointed several small adjustments. The major one is the salaries line. We increased by 100,000 to absorb potential salary and wage increases. Obviously, pending board approval. The other adjustments are minor in nature, just fine tuning at this point. So each time we look at it in between board meetings from February through April, Alex and I and Laura's involved, and others are involved, and we just have ongoing conversation about what are we anticipating, and then just fine tuning. So, yeah, if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer, but we also attached the February memo because it has more of the narrative about each line item, and just to refresh your memory if you needed to have that. There's no action required at this point.
Can you refresh my memory on how this works with like the village?
Sure. And the budget?
Yeah, do we just submit our budget to them or how does
Yeah, so the budget actually is just totally in our control, you know, so the library board adopts a budget in April of each year. And so we share it with the village, like they'll kind of tack it onto their big binder of a budget, you know, but there's no kind of response from them asking us to adjust anything or whatever. The library board is an autonomous agency that, you know, controls our library budget. So, yeah.
Other questions or comments? So we'll vote on this next month to approve it, to be the end of the fiscal year.
Right, so if you do have comments in between meetings, please just email me or call me, and we'll factor your comments into what I prepare for April. But obviously during that meeting, it's difficult to kind of make adjustments on the fly, but so we'll try to give you a clean copy of what the final draft looks like and ask you to approve it.
Okay, ready to move on? Right, then let's move on. Page 70, approval of the salary scale adjustment. Richard.
So I think the memo explains what this is, but I'll just note that last year the board did approve a 2.6% adjustment based on the recommendation of HR Source, which is a company that consults with various organizations. They did our benchmarking study for us a couple of years ago. And so this year, when Leah reached out to our contact there, she mentioned that 2.5% is the recommendation for public libraries in the area. And so just bring that forward to the board, and you'll see the attachment has, the first attachment is the proposed new salary scale, and the second attachment is the current scale. And just to remind you, like, this action wouldn't in and of itself result in any increases to any staff unless they suddenly fell below the new minimum of their grade, which actually that's not the case actually with this adjustment, that there's anyone that would fall into that category. So this adjustment is more about just the scale itself shifting 2.5%. So another, just one little explanation about the grade 1 minimum. The reason why that's 15 and not lower is because, say, minimum wage is 15, and also in our CBA, it specifies that the minimum would be 15 for all CBA bargaining unit eligible employees. So that's just, we just, instead of like putting a lower number and starting at 15, we just put what our minimum would be. But everything else is kind of equidistant in terms of the 11% between the midpoint of each grade, and then the 20% between the midpoint and the minimum and maximum. So the scale is still serving us well, and it should, because we're only a couple of years after the benchmarking was created.
I did have a question for how this works then. So when we have new hires then, for example, is that going to shift where their entry point is?
Right, if we're starting someone.
Am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah, if we're starting someone and they're not coming in with any relevant experience, then we would likely start them at the new minimum of that grade.
Based off of the salary scale adjustment that we just made?
If the board
if we
approves,
approve this.
exactly, yeah, but this would be effective May 1st. So we're just kind of bringing it to you. We usually bring salary related things like this in March, so if any impact is had on the budget planning, then we'll have time to reflect all those changes in April, for the April viewing of the budget, so.
So then, the potential employees that would come in, we're saying that would really impact the way that they're moving in, but we don't have any, do we foresee that there are any within the coming year where there's going to be big shifts where we see there's going to be a big shift in that compensation piece to it?
Can you repeat your question?
I'm not really sure
I
if
want
I
to make
can-
sure I understand.
I'm not
you.
really sure if I understand it myself. So when we're looking at this upcoming year's budget, right, and we're using this new, potentially this new salary scale, do we foresee that there are several positions out there where we're gonna see a big jump in any of that?
In how we compensate like new hires?
Right,
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's 2.5%, you know, from the minimum to the minimum, you know, and it's not like we are bound by like a law, a rule or something that we would start them like at the midpoint even or anything like that, you know, like we look at what the experience and skill set they're coming in with and do comps and so to maintain internal equity, and then we place them in our scale at the appropriate place or based on our assessment, and then so some people will come in at the minimum or close to it. Some people with really significant experience where they're just walking in the door and they're doing the job proficiency and excellence. We might start them between the minimum and the midpoint, or you know, so it depends. But all in all, it will only get affected by potentially making it 2.5% more than what we've been doing this year.
thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question. So maybe there's two ways this could have cost. One is if somebody is at the minimum and we raise the floor, if there's a minimum. And you said there's no employees currently that we have to raise because of
Yes.
That would also be true with the ceiling. So given it goes into effect May 1st, when we talk about raises, we could have somebody who's at the maximum for their pay grade right now. We're gonna raise that ceiling, so in May, they could get a raise that they wouldn't have been able to get without our raising the
That's
ceiling.
right. So if they're, that's exactly right. I won't
So
repeat it, but
do we know,
yeah.
are there any people that would benefit from?
There's a
raising the ceiling?
couple, I believe, and them may fall in that category, but that's not like a large number.
Allison, you have any idea?
It's just a handful, if that, yeah.
Yeah, and there is, so within the CBA, there is also still a cost associated with being at the top of scale as well. So.
They don't get the full increase,
Yeah.
but they get,
Correct.
and, I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead.
Right, we'll talk about this in the
Yeah.
next piece in terms of
Yeah.
they get a bonus. instead of-
Exactly,
Yeah,
so
correct.
Right.
even if they are in that,
It's not
they
costing
would,
more money.
they may have
When it
gotten that,
compounds,
Yeah,
right.
and it doesn't compound.
It would be
Exactly,
compounding the.
Compounding is what they would lose, but they may still gain that percentage amount. Yes.
And just to be clear, for people who are covered under the CBA, it outlines what percentage increase they get if they're already at top of scale. So I think the
We're talking
bonus
about
piece
the
you were
non-
talking about is the non.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, that's where we have a decision. That would impact the non.
Yeah. But like I said, this in and of itself, this decision doesn't grant increases, you know what I mean? That's the next conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. So if there are no other questions, I recommend that the board approve a 2.5% increase to the overall salary scale effective May 1st, 2025.
Any other questions? If not, can I have that motion?
So moved.
Right? Just change up Pula.
Everyone on their toes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Shavon?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Michelle?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Right on to the last one, approval of the salary and wage increases for non-bargaining unit employees, page 74.
Right, so lengthy memo here, I won't read all of it, but I provided some context on last year's decision and, which is on page 1, and then also several years beyond that, what the increases were. And I noted when it ceased to be for all employees, obviously, because of the existence of the CBA and the bargaining unit. So the past 2 years were for the non-bargaining unit. So all that information is there. And then I gave you some information about the merit system the rating system that we integrated into our performance review process for, that really takes, that applies to this conversation. So if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to answer that. And then I make a recommendation here on the bottom of page 75. Basically, essentially, I'm asking for recommending that the board approve the same amount in percent increases as it did last year. So it would be a 2.5% just base increase for all non-bargaining unit employees, and then either a 1 or a 2% increase based on their performance rating. So the total increase for any given person would either be a 3.5% or a 4.5%. And then the numbers on how much that would actually cost us in dollars is also provided in here. And that's all been factored into our March budget projection. Hence the amount that I increased the salary lines. So if you have any questions about any of that, I'm happy to answer. And then lastly, I just want to note that what we just began to talk about with the bonus payments is what we're calling it for the non-bargaining unit employees who find themselves above the maximum of the pay grade. So if that occurs, what the board did last year and what I would recommend again this year is to approve a bonus payment essentially in the equivalent amount of what they would have received if they were under the maximum of within the maximum of their grade. And then split out over periodic payments, and Allison does that quarterly. So that's worked well for us. So in other words, if someone, we do it that way because if someone, leaves their employment here, then in the middle of the year, they're not we're kind of getting that front loaded. So you'll get whatever they would have gotten collectively accrued if they were just getting the percent wage increase. So hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know and I'll try to explain it differently. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
This may be moved. Of our non-bargaining unit people, in the evaluation, what percentage of them get the exceptional?
What percentage? That's a great question. What is it?
So
Oh, 33. She knew. Yeah, so generally exceptional as a rating is considered more rare, although I will tell you this group encompasses all of our supervisors, managers, and confidential employees. So it's a high-performing team, but most staff members fall into the standard performance category.
67.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I know you said it, Richard, I just want to make sure I understand, when the current budget that was in the memo, that is built off of the assumptions of turnover, the collective bargaining that's already been guaranteed, and then this amount that you're proposing here? Or
Right.
it's not inclusive of that?
Well, so the amount that we provided last month was 7.9.
Yes,
And that was like just basically barely covering what we would need to,
Okay.
if no one left, right? And so the 800,000 would give us a little bit of breathing room,
Okay.
So we're hoping that, we'll fall under the 8 million, to be honest, like we have in the past, and we're trying to kind of shave off that gap, you know, but it's really, I really prefer not to be like so razor precise on that because I'd hate to go over budget on our salary line ever, right?
No, it's fine, I just wanna understand the assumptions that went
Right.
into how you budgeted for
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
so it is like based off of past turnover rates, the collective bargaining, and then this estimate here.
Right,
Okay,
right. So, I mean, all of this is always somewhat of a guesstimate because we can't predict.
oh no, sure,
Yeah.
no, I get it, yeah, for sure. I just wanted to understand the assumptions that went
Sure.
into building the
Yeah.
budget number, okay.
Other questions or comments?
My laptop. That's interesting.
I thought you had a question.
That's how I introduced my question.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I'm actually gonna break this down into 3 votes, just to be clear. First, we'll vote on the base, then we'll vote on the merit, and then we'll vote on the bonus. So first, a motion to approve a 2.5% base salary wage increase for non-bargaining unit eligible employees.
Second.
All right, Bula,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Shevna,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Mary.
Yes,
Right, that passes unanimously. Now for the merit increase, motion to approve up to a 2% merit increase for non-bargaining unit eligible employees. I have that motion.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right, we'll go back. Mary,
yes,
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shavna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Rula.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. And last, motion to approve a bonus installment payments in lieu of salary and wage increases for non-bargaining unit eligible employees who are above the maximum of their pay grade for fiscal year 2025 to 2026.
I have a question.
Sure.
We just voted on the standard merit rating, what about the exceptional merit?
It's up to 2%.
That was the,
Okay, that, I just wanna make sure I
so
understood,
we
okay,
did the base and then we did
Yes.
the merit, which could be 1 to 2%.
Got it,
So
okay.
we- And that was with phrases up to 2%.
got it, just wanna make sure I, okay,
And we'll
Thank you.
obviously follow the recommendation that's out there.
yes, okay, thank you.
And so now it's
Now we're on to
bonus
the
for
bonus.
those who have maxed
Got it.
out, and we can't give them
Yes,
a raise, but we'll give them the approval. So it's the compounding issue we discussed later. So can I have a motion to approve bonus installment payments in lieu of a salary and wage increase for non-bargaining unit eligible employees who are above the maximum of their pay grade for fiscal year 2025 to 2026?
So moved.
All right, Mary,
yes,
Michelle,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Shavna,
Yes.
Ella,
Yes.
Rula.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously.
Appreciate that, thank you very much.
All right, last item, comments from trustees?
I'll make a comment. I was very excited to see the new maker in residence. I'm very excited to have her on board, and I think that that's going to be a great way for her to use her talents throughout the community with Ms. Julio, so very excited.
We had a great first workshop last week on doing some like mending basics.
oh, that's great.
And if you want to learn, she's like is
So
a tailor
talented. She's so
by
talented.
trade. So if you have things that you've been meaning to learn how to hem trousers that aren't lopsided, bring them in during office hours.
I should do like an 8-year-old child's, you know, whole.
She can do any of it. She can do any of it. She's really talented. And she loves to share it with people, which is great. So.
Very excited.
Other comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding Amy Holcomb, what is elephant toothpaste?
I saw that in there too.
I'm just kind of, okay, I'll just
Brave
kind of let
enough
it
to
go,
ask
maybe,
the
I don't know.
question.
Does anyone know?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read that in the profile too, I was like.
Yeah. It's when you do, it's a chemical reaction that you can do in like a soda bottle or something that is gonna make, it's like hydrogen peroxide and yeast and it foams a lot,
Oh.
like foamy toothpaste.
So, but it generates a lot of it, so thus elephant.
Oh,
In the 11-year employee description,
In her profile,
describes how she created elephant toothpaste with the director, which was Carolyn Anthony.
Yeah, it wasn't me,
Yeah.
yeah. I would have remembered that.
As part of her job interview, so.
Right. Now everyone's gonna hear that and everyone's gonna do that when they come for a job interview. That's what it takes, you know, but.
Whatever it takes.
Gene, can I just make one last
Sure.
comment? This evening, I hope you all had a chance to just see a little bit of it. We had a harpist and a flutist come, and those were Northwestern grad students and who just reached out to us out of the blue saying they wanted to perform in our library for a class project or something like that. And we weren't gonna turn that down, you know, so we said, oh, of course, you know, so, yeah, Amy H. Holcomb, I should say Amy Holcomb, planned all that and coordinated that, so I saw a lot of people stop by, and that was great. And then just wanted to say, Susie brought some flowers for all of you, and I want to explain where those came from. There's an organization called Inspired Through Flowers, and it's just kind of some volunteers who get together on a regular basis, get kind of leftover flowers from wholesalers and other grocery stores, and they make these beautiful bouquets, and then they deliver them to teachers and hospital workers and librarians. And they came here today. One of the people who reached out to us is a Skokie resident and patron, Laura Shapiro, and she and her colleagues came and delivered 60 plus bouquets to our staff. And then they're coming back next Wednesday to deliver like 60 plus more to cover all of our staff, or many of our staff. So yeah, that was really beautiful. I just want to give them a public shout out. Inspired Through Flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
I was excited to see the quilt, the community quilt project going on. Is that was something that you brought up? Like, Mary, you
talked about it.
did you? Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, we were talking about, and then I think Jean was like, what if we took all the old Skokie Library t-shirts and made them? We were talking about all these ways to build quilts. I remember like we were all.
So that's what it came from. That's so cool. Yeah, I was excited to see that.
Thank you for the t-shirts.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love the hot pink.
It's a fun color.
Yeah.
It is.
We expect you all to wear it out in the community.
I've already worn mine once.
It's part of the reaching out to the community and advocacy of the library.
Yes.
Yeah.
You stand out in a crowd in that color. It's good. It's good.
So I actually wore mine last night. Is it okay if I?
Okay.
I wore mine last night to a meet and greet with one of the mayoral candidates. And one of the topics of discussion was if this person was elected, they would create a strategic plan for, however many years, looking into the future, obviously. And I, wearing my t-shirt and all, was thinking how to leverage and include as many people in the community that would be interested in certain different topics like economic development, so on and so forth. And I said, well, if, and you are in this position, it'd be great to leverage the library because, just like the league came here and did the event last week. It'd be great to use the library to be able to reach out to all of the residents and maybe have a better turnout,
I love that. I'm glad you said offered that. We have a great relationship with the village, obviously, and so anytime they want to kind of work together on engaging our patrons in the community, because since we see so many people in the community come to our doors every day, we're a natural draw for partners who want to kind of tap into that, the community and what people are thinking and experiencing. So.
I got energized, every time. I was so tired last night and I didn't want to go, but I went. And I'm glad I did because I met somebody from a company in Skokie that I've always been curious about and such, and so we made a nice you know, introduction, going for coffee, and then she has a young one that's the same age as mine, so I was like, oh, we'll get together, and so on and so forth. So things just kind of evolved from that kind of networking, but I just, you know, wearing my t-shirt now. Yeah, it just, you know, the light bulb went on as far as we have such a beautiful, you know, rooms like this that they can use and stuff, so.
These rooms are often in use throughout the week, so yeah. People recognize our branding.
Yeah.
Sure.
People will stop, I mean, I've been stopped at Target, I've been stopped at supermarket, people, yeah.
And I stop other people.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Especially the summer reading ones.
Yeah.
Great job, keep doing your reading, yes. You keep signing up for improvement.
Even in different cities, you know, neighboring cities, they all love the Skokie Library and they all come here, so.
And Laura meets people in different states who recognize our branding.
One in the woods once, and I was like, oh, the Skokie Library, in the bathroom at the Seattle airport. I all over.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Any other comments? That motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
All right, thank you so much.